Hello, everyone. Guten Tag. So we have to greeting the bosses over there. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. So today I'll talk about sustainability. So first of all, has already if you know what is SDGs mean? Well, there's a pretty much understanding of that. So some government people and some multi-country, they sent together, was in 2015, and they're talking about how to make a better world. So they find a common roles, common objectives to make this world more sustainable. And they come up with the idea of the SDGs, which is Sustainable Development Goals. That is 17 SDGs, and they're represented by the colors that I have here in my pin. So there's 17 different objectives. So out of that, they had a dream, and I would like you to join me with the dream. Can we imagine a world without poverty, without hunger, a world that people, doesn't matter if it's gender or religion, they have the same opportunities? Can you imagine a world that you have energy, that you have water for everybody? So there is a lot of things that we don't have yet, and this is what they have the goals to achieve. So it's a very much ambition goals. We are in the halfway through because we are now in 2023. They started journey in 2015, is already halfway through to what they call the plan of 2030. The 2030 agenda is what established these SDGs. And for that, what we have is a lot of things that we have in common for the SDG. So the SDG are the objectives, so there is very much staff, as I mentioned before, but is the way that we can, everybody, helping to go to that direction. So the 17th sustainable goal that I was just naming you to dream with me is a very complicated one, especially if you talk to the ones which have the responsibility to implement, the ones which have to put measures on. And sometimes when we talk about them, the most difficult thing when you have those objectives is how you track that, how you make sure that you're going to the right direction. So I've been speaking with a lot of public authorities, with the CEOs of private companies, and they share with me the more difficulty that they have is to have a photo, to have the status if they're going to the right direction, to have the way that if they are accomplished with the sustainable development goals. And the other thing they say, well, it cost me a lot of time, Osmar, to have a data in my hand to see if I'm doing good or doing well, independent if it's a private sector or public sector. So one of the things then, when they have the information, which is normally a snapshot, it's very difficult then to know if they are going to the right track. Every time that they need to update the data, they have to collect everything again. So the difficulty here was, how about to have a dashboard that we can use to track this? Instead of have a photo, to have a movie, but not only a movie, to have a streaming live that they can see the sustainability in real life. And then we come up with the idea to have a product, to have a tool, what we call Syrah. So Syrah is a configurable dashboard when we use the technology to enabling all the society, to enabling the companies, the public government to see, to track, and to have the information. So what we're doing is we are helping our customers to have the information, to know where they are, to improve, and about that, to make this better. So some of the ones already have a lot of actions that they are performing and doing, but they don't have an idea if they're doing progress. Or let's say that it costs a lot of effort to track this and to have this if you have force. And whatever you know and you can improve, you can have a better world. So this is mainly for the companies, and we are part of Deutsche Telekom, with systems. We are worried about the sustainability. Is it true that, and to be honest, there is a lot of companies who is only doing greenwashing, only doing that they are doing things to make a tick in the box? But we believe that we want to have a better world. We want to have a better world for future generations, and we cannot do this without thinking on the sustainability. For instance, on the CO reduction, our group, Deutsche Telekom, is planning to be CO2 neutral in 2025. So this is just 1.5 years or 2 years from now. But this is for the scope 1 and 2. If you consider also our providers, so this will take a little bit more longer, but I think there is a plan behind that we can do this in some years later. For that, what we see is ESG, sustainability, is really on the agenda for the companies, for the private, for the public government companies. And this, there is no way, because as my beloved colleague Ferran Serrano says, there is no plan B, no planet B. So that we have to implement that. And this is the way that the systems is trying to help with our product on the society. So thank you very much for the speech. So now I will welcome here my colleague.
Here with me.
I will be with you.
This is such an important topic. I'm really excited about what you created here. It ties in also so well with what Frank was talking about earlier. People need to know what they need the data in order to make the right decisions towards sustainability. So let's speak a little bit more about what you and your team have created here. Maybe before we speak more about the dashboard itself, a question back. A lot of organizations have realized the importance of having such tools and being able to be trackable, to have more reliable data. But then there may be certain obstacles in implementation. Yeah. Have you and your team analyzed some of these obstacles beforehand, what they may be, and how you can maybe also overcome them?
Yeah, I think this is one of the topics that we normally have when we have the conversation, because we want to help our customers to understand and to see, because there is a lot of actions that they're already doing. Some small things that if you put together is really a step forward for that. And I think the difficulty or the obstacles is that some of the companies know the fact that they have in 3 dimensions, which is people, organization, and society. Some of them not. So with that, what we're trying is to help them to remove the obstacles, to have the information. As I was commenting before, it was very costly for the colleagues that I'm talking to have this on a permanent basis. Normally they have just a snapshot, which costs a lot of things to construct. And this is removing this obstacle instead of having the snapshot and effort to have this on a permanent basis.
Right.
And one of the things which I love it is the technology enabling that. So we can use a lot of technology, data, big data, cloud, and implement that and use this as an enabler to remove these obstacles.
So talk me through the process a little bit. If an organization is interested in bringing the Syrah dashboard to their organization, how do you perhaps help them to go through this, like to identify the data that is needed to feed into the dashboard, to perhaps prepare their data infrastructure for introducing the tool?
Yeah. So I love to simplify things. So I could call this in 5 steps. The first step is the assessment, to having a conversation with this kind of companies and make sure that they understand what their goals. Because sometimes they have actions, but they are not really putting on what the purpose of that. So defining the goals, I think, is the number one. So we help them to assess that, to set up the targets, to define the goals, because normally it's not everybody that can accomplish with all the 17 goals. Maybe you can do part of that, maybe not. Step number 2 is to check the external data. There is a bunch of information available that they can not access or is difficult to access. So making it easy, I think, is one thing. Third thing is, inside of the company and the actions that they are doing, there is a lot of data, a lot of information. So we are able here to help them to connect the dots, to put this in a framework, and they can have them. Number 4, come up with the recommendations, which are the actions that you can improve this, or what the other companies are doing, like a benchmark, to see if they can learn from each other, if we can share best practices. And last but not least, to have a structured data in an automatic way that they can repeat that and use this in a following basis.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's so important also for everyone to hear. It's not just like, here's a tool and use it, but it's also connected to this process that is going to help so many more organizations get into this and adapt this tool. So talk me you gave us a very just a small sneaky preview here. Yeah. Talk me through some of the key features, please.
So in fact, what we have is a dashboard that we have some visualization of the graph. And as we are using to have the SDG data, the 17 goals, as I mentioned, not all of the people can having all the information, but for the information, they can have visualization of some graphs, how can they improving, how they are far from the objectives, how they are comparing to the other peers, and having this information available. For the data sourcing, having the set of data that can be pulling in the systems and automatize this from time to time. So I can give you also an example. We can also use predictive analysis to make that. Imagine that I have a factory and I want to improve on the CO2 emissions. And instead of doing this on the prem, we can digitalize the factory, having like a digital twin. On the digital twin, we have some algorithms that can helping us if one specific line we put renewable energy or we put some actions on that, how can I save CO2? How can I save energy costs? And helping for the two dimensions. One is for the financial KPIs, of course, but the other one is for the sustainable KPIs. Everything of this is included. It's a pity that we cannot demo here because we don't have time, but this will be a good, and I invite for the people who wants to know about this later.
Okay, cool. So how do you think this will help also change organizations to really become more sustainable? The dashboard can contribute to tracking and reporting along sustainability criteria. So that's already great in itself. But how do you think this might also change organizations in themselves?
You know, my view is that the sustainable goals or objectives has to be treated as other business metrics.
Yeah.
So you used to have financial metrics, which is very important for the, let's say, financial sustainability of the company. We have productive metrics that we are following up with when you have a production line. But we have to do the same with the sustainability. We have to be able that sustainability become a metric, a business metric that we want.
Absolutely.
And I can give a talk. Another day I was with the BlackRock guys. They are very heavy investing money, and they are talking about the selection of the investments. Mm-hmm. And I think was a question for the audience, say, how do you select that on the profitability, mid, long term, or more sustainability? And I was surprised they say, no, the criteria for the investments, we're really primarily talking about the sustainability. Because if the company is not sustainable, they don't deserve to have the investments for our company.
And
so I was very surprised.
Yeah, and they may not be making long-term profits. It is really surprising to hear, and at the same time also quite exciting that conversation has arrived in those circles as well. And I think even more exciting if we will actually get to a point to understand what does that sustainability mean? By which criteria and which data are we actually measuring it, right?
Yeah, correct. And there is a lot of companies doing good things over there. So we have to really appreciate learning from the ones which is pioneers on that and still with proud to improve. But I think one of the let's say, ask for the audience that let's use technology to enable sustainability. This is a really important, and we can do a lot if you allow the technology to help us on this sustainability.
Absolutely. And really one of the key themes that we have here this year at the Deutsche Telekom booth at Mobile World, and of course many others, as you can see walking through the halls, also jumping on this theme and really trying to make this the top of their agenda, thankfully. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of organizations interested to find out, like, how can I adapt this? What's next in terms of next steps for the Syrah dashboard? So can you outline those for us, foreshadow a little bit?
Well, we'd love to have more information, but we're in the process. We have already a version of the product, but this is not what we want to stop.
Right.
We want to adapt and to include functionality, to include links, and using these algorithms that I was commenting to complement that. Another important step that I would like to have is we are working to certify this dashboard. Wherever we have in the future a need to say this is a data that has been certified and checked and showing our dashboard is accomplished with the needs. If you're talking about a public sector, they have this need to accomplish with SG. There is no other way. So they have to make sure that this is covered with some tools, some enablers, as could be the tools. So I would say this first is adding additional data resources that we can create a data space for sustainability that we can use that. Help them with the automation, so including the automation part, which is it. The algorithms, whatever we're creating, we are adding to the tool. And last but not least, what I mentioned before, this the certification, which could having a stamp, and we can use this also for other purposes.
Excellent. I'm definitely going to be watching out for the next steps and how to hopefully adapt the Syrah dashboard to the organizations I'm responsible for. And I think you're going to be around for a couple of more minutes here in this space. So in case people want to run up and ask you questions after our session, that's possible, right?
If there is a question, I'm pleased to answer. I'll be here around. So I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. I hope that you like the topic because I love it. Sustainability has to be the thing that we have to improve and have the planet for the next generation.
And your passion for it totally transports. So let's give Osmar a really big round of applause
Thank
for
you
this
very
great
much.
product.